Hello once again, everyone. Mr. Warren Hayes here. Of course, it's the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel or podcast. So this is, at the very least, you're expecting this. You're expecting me, right? It's the AEW Dynamite review, though. Maybe you were expecting something else. But then again, if you hang around here, if you know how things go, you know Thursdays this is what happens. Like if you're subscribed to youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, which you should, by the way. You already know that this is what happens on Thursdays. And if you're not, well, consider subscribing. Consider giving the video a like as well. All these little things help out a great deal. And if you're listening to this on your favorite audio platform as a podcast, well, 5-star reviews and 5-star ratings on, Apple, Spotify, they help out a great deal. Even to this day, these are still benchmarks on how well things are going and how good things are, how your podcast is performing. So I would appreciate any help I can get. It's like AEW Dynamite will probably appreciate us talking about it. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe. AEW Dynamite is not an entity. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. It doesn't have feelings. It's just a TV show. I don't think it'll appreciate. But maybe the artisans. Because look, and especially this week, where I feel we had a very good episode of Dynamite. And this will probably shock and surprise people when I say, it wasn't because of the pro wrestling on the show, but there have been a lot of events on the show that made it feel important, that made it feel like that was giving direction to things. Stuff that happened that advanced storylines or created some, gave us inklings of what's going forward. So, there's a lot of good in this episode right here. That overall, despite the fact that I thought the wrestling was fair, I think there's one good match on the card. I think everything else was pretty fair. It was all right. We're gonna get into it, but outside of that, I thought this was a strong episode of Dynamite because it laid the foundation for a lot of things, and we're gonna get into it. So March 29 is, of course, the date from St. Louis, Missouri. We've been over this. We're not going down, not beating that horse again. From the Chaifetz Arena, Chaifetz Arena. I don't know. If that's your company name, you have to rethink it. It doesn't roll off the tongue. I wouldn't, lots of consonants here for the amount of vowels. I think the consonant to vowel ratio is too high for simple pronunciation and an easy mnemonic remembrance. It's not anyway. The show started off with Jungle Boy Jack Perry defeating Matt Hardy. Bit of back and forth until Hardy catches Jungle Jack on a dive and side effects him on the floor. Ethan Page gets sneaky quite a bit in this match. Tosses Jack over the barricade. Jack fights back with a sledge. Side effect by Matt Hardy on the apron. Hardy gets a heat segment. Jack hits a drop kick. He tries to do some stuff, but Ethan Page continues distracting, which ends with a superplex by Matt Hardy. Hardy and Ethan Page then get on the floor, and Hook comes out to look out for Jungle Boy here. And this made sense on a couple of levels. It made sense on 2 levels, right? They've been setting up an Ethan Page Hook match, right? They've started, sowing the seeds of that match. So that's on the way, first and foremost. And then second of all, when Jungle Hook unfortunately split up, they made a point, right? If it's, Jack Perry, if I'm not mistaken, said, we're each of us are going to go our separate ways, but we're still going to have each other's backs. So everything worked here. Everything, not only was Hook had a double motivation to come out here because he's in this thing with Ethan Page, or at least in the throes of it, right? It was after the Stokely loss. where Matt Hardy was then trying to hype up Ethan Page, right? Then you have to go after him now. And then the undercurrent of Hook and Jack Perry still having each other's backs. So all this worked. We get some more dives by Jack. Jungle Boy gets some offense in, lands a hidden blade for the win. During this match, by the way, we saw the other two pillars of All Elite Wrestling, Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara, hanging out, watching backstage. Sammy was with Tay. And in different locations, right? They weren't watching all in the same room. They were watching in different locations. Nice little attention to detail there. So you know, a lot of people, you know, I've been, you know, saying, oh, what a great start to the Jungle Boy MJF feud, but I don't think this isn't like a specific one-way feud. I'm cringing at the thought that this will end up being a four-way match at the Pape. I really think, and I'm bringing back the idea the ideas that I had last week. And I think the path that should be taken here is one of two things. Either the pillars have to fight each other to build a challenger. Build one challenger, Tony. Here's the thing. When it comes to, look, you want to do four-way matches for, you know, exhibition purposes. You want to throw people together and a bunch of people together so that they'll do some spots. That's fine. You know, it's whatever, right? I'm not a fan of them. But it's whatever. But when it comes to titles, build a challenger. And we have time to build a challenger for Double or Nothing, which is at the end of May. Not May 1st. Not May 10. It's in the final throes of May. We're heading into summer at this point. So we have more than ample time to build a challenger. Build a goddamn challenger. And it doesn't make it more compelling to have your world title be defended against three other dudes at the same time. In fact, I feel it takes away from a performance from either one of these three guys up against MJF, who could have a great moment to shine, as opposed to just like spread. Like, this is diminishing returns. You're putting everyone in a match, but the odds of someone coming out looking better outside of your champion are diminished. They're not as strong. Like, there's so much good to having just like one so you have time, basically. You have time to build a challenger. And the idea I had last week, to come back to my initial point, I'm coming right to it. It's fine. I'm not rambling here. Or am I? But bring this around to the pillars have to fight against each other. They have to fight each other to become the number one guy to face MJF. And that is a great way to build a challenger and really put your money where your mouth is and say, these guys are the future. These guys are the guys that we want to push forward. So we're going with one of these three guys at this conjuncture right here. And that is much more beneficial than pushing all three. And what were the ideas I had? I was like, have a scoreboard. Have the pillars wrestle every fucking show. Have them wrestle on Dynamite, have them wrestle on Rampage, have them wrestle on Dark. Have them wrestle on all the shows so that they can rack up wins and have a scoreboard where you actually see, you know, who's the number one contender, who's making their way up there. Do that. Or let's have a round robin, which I think is even more interesting. Have a nice little, a self-contained little G1 with these three dudes. A round robin tournament. Everyone fights each other. Whoever has the most points at the end is the number one contender. And you just build a challenger. And I think that's exciting. Now, maybe Tony is looking at this and he's saying, look, I want to do something with the pillars, but neither one of these three guys has the star power to main event with MJF, right? And I think that is a fair assumption, but there's no time like the present, like right now, to strap the rocket to one of these guys and just be like, let's go right ahead and push this one forward with one of these three, and it'll be a litmus test. If the main event, if either Perry or Guevara or Darby ends up in the main event with Max, and maybe it doesn't draw very well, so on and so forth, I wouldn't instantly blame the new guy for not drawing. I wouldn't blame MJF for having to carry all of this alone, and I wouldn't blame AEW for trying something. But I feel we're going towards the four-way, and that kind of stinks. I'm not a fan, despite the fact that all four of these guys are super talented, don't get me wrong. I don't know. And I would be very confident, extremely confident, in putting Jungle Boy versus MJF in the main event of Double or Nothing, off of the strength of their 2020 Revolution match, which we're going to talk about in a second here. Because after the match, MJF's music hits, after Jungle Boy defeats Matt Hardy. MJF music hits, and we are in for a great segment. One that just built. Started off here, ended up here. He calls Jack Perry's interrupting his rebar mitzvah a couple of weeks ago a kind of a Kanye move, to be honest. I appreciated that. So he starts to talk about how Jungle Boy talked about how their careers took different paths, right? After their Double or Nothing 2020 match. And again, the Double or Nothing 2020 match, I think it is one of the underappreciated matches from AEW's history. That match ruled. I'm pretty sure it was in my top 10 matches of the year. And I feel like I was a bit on an island, but I would love to revisit it, go take a look at it again and see how it holds up. But it was one of my favorite matches on that card that year. And here's why. This is why MJF understands the promo game when it comes to doing promos, right? Because that's what the promo game is all about. But this is why he understands. Because despite the fact that he has, so much more natural charisma than, 90% of the roster in AEW, and that he can out-talk all of them, or at least, hang with the heavy hitters. Despite the fact he can outdo anyone on the mic here, he still manages to put the other guy over, right? Because he points to all the good stuff about Jungle Boy, how hard he worked to get to where he is, and how he respected him as well, right? How he felt after his match, the Double or Nothing match, how he felt like I had found my equal, something that I was going to fight my entire career. And a good heel, this is why he gets it, a good heel will never entirely bury his opponent to the point of geeking him out, because otherwise he'll look like a geek too. If you're a heel, and all you do is, completely eviscerate your opponent, well, you're not giving the audience the impetus to get excited about it, because you're like, well, he's trash, the other guy's trash, and he's above him. And then when he beats him, I was like, well, he was a geek all along. But no, throughout it all, MJF continues to weave into his promo here that Jack Perry he's a good wrestler, and he's a hard worker, and he, begrudgingly respects him, instead of just flat out, destroying him verbally. He says, despite all of this, despite all the fact that he works hard and so on and so forth, he says Perry's career has been kind of mid. And he asks Jungle Boy if he recalls what he told him after shaking hands after the Double or Nothing match. And Jack remembers, he has a mic now, and he says that MJF told him that he has all the potential in the world, but nice guys finish last. And if he ever wanted to be successful, he had to ditch, all the people he cares about, all his friends, and care about anybody but himself. MJF confirms, yep, that's pretty much what I told you. That if you ever wanted to be successful, that's what you had to do. And gives him examples that he was being held back by the likes of Marco Stunted Growth and Luchasaurus and Christian Cage. And, he says don't bank on Hook either. He's going to do the same thing. MJF says they could have worked together and ran the whole show, but he just had to be, the good guy for these people, right? And in some ways, he wishes. Jack says, a long time ago, we thought maybe they'd be friends, and in a lot of ways, he wishes he was like Max, talk like him, stab people in the back to get what he wants. And he only wishes he could be the most narcissistic, selfish piece of shit in the entire business, which got a big pop, and we were getting really fired up here. Jungle Jack says he'll do it his way. At least he won't wake up alone every day and hate the person he sees in the mirror. MJF says, at the end of the day, he's still only Jungle Boy, weak of mind, body, soul, and heart. I'm pretty sure we were doing a reference here. And he brings up Anna Jay. Jack Perry doesn't like it, and they brawl when MJF says, he talked to Anna Jay, and Anna Jay says, he might be good at a lot of things, but he's pretty mid in the sack. And they brawl. Jungle Boy stands tall in the ring after. And you see what it took here? You can call him, weak of mind, weak of body, weak of soul, weak of spirit. But you attack a man for underperforming in the sack, that's a step too far. That's where we get mad. I thought this opening segment, it wasn't the opening segment, but look, the match, it was all right. Absolutely nothing to write home about. And I actually found it curious that they were starting off with it. But this segment, one of Jack's best moments on the mic so far. I thought he did. And everything started very, very cool, very put together. And then as things went on, the tension rose. I thought Perry did a fantastic job keeping up with Max here. Of course, MJF is amazing. That's not even criticism. That's not even proper analysis anymore. It's just it's a thing. It's like a universal truth. Good promo segment. Alex Marvez is stalking Kenny Omega's locker room again this week. Taz calls him over when he said, we're going back to Al Scoops. And he said Al, as in Alex Marvez, and Scoops, Al Scoops. And I was like, and for a minute, my heart skipped a beat. And I'm like, did they find Al Isaacs? Did they dig this guy back up? From Al Isaacs Scoops from back in the day. If you know, you know. And I don't know if that was a reference to it. Taz was around at the day. Anyway. So, Marvez is backstage, and so he talks to Don Callis and Kenny Omega, who again is getting ready for a big championship match. So they work out the fact, after the finale last week, they work out the fact that Kenny inevitably saw the tape, right? We're not going into the show this week with Kenny going, Hangman Page, what the fuck did you do to my friend? No! We're not treating the audience like morons. We're not expecting time to freeze within the span of a week. Kenny saw the tape, and what they did here is Don, who's continuing to schmooze Kenny, right? Trying to make sure he's being manipulative here, right? With Kenny, he's trying to, smoke and mirrors and whatnot. He basically tells, this is what he says. He says, look, it was a weird predicament, Hangman Page is a strong fella, I fell. But they're not trying to say, I can't believe you threw me down. It's look, Don is no, it's my fault. I shouldn't have gotten involved, and I feel bad for it. But Kenny, I got to ask you, and he says this, he doesn't say this literally, but, is Kenny, isn't it interesting that you immediately thought that Adam Page attacked your friend? That was your go-to reaction, right? So he's still playing off of what happened, despite the fact that Kenny, like we said, saw the tape, realized that everything was a big misunderstanding, but Don is continuing to be a son of a bitch here. He's continuing to manipulate Kenny into not liking Adam Page by saying, isn't it interesting that when it happened, your first thought was, oh, Adam Page came after my friend. So that was a fun way to work around it. He also promises Kenny that he'll apologize to Hangman. That's the gist of the segment. Kenny says, you don't have to do it. But Don says, no, I'm going to make this right. I wonder how many times Don Callis said to do that. Shoot. We get vignettes of 2.0, schmoozing the Acclaimed. Speaking of schmoozing. Taking them out for a night on the town to get them to join the Jericho Appreciation Society, right? They take them to a hockey game. Take them to the amusement park. Dinner. Was it hockey or basketball? I'm drawing a blank. I feel it was hockey, right? I think they went to a hockey game. It's all right. They claim they're going to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to join the JAS next week, and I think we already know what the answer is. The Blackpool Combat Club squashed Dalton Castle and the boys. And this is where the show starts really picking up. This is where the direction of this show picks up and becomes impeccable. Here's what we got. Blackpool Combat Club, Dalton and the boys come out. Great entrance. But Claudio, Moxley, Yuta, they all jump them during the entrance. And while John and Wheeler are choking out Dalton and Brent on the floor, Claudio is destroying Brandon in the ring, ends him with a Ricola bomb, and they exit through the audience, jump the railing, and they fuck off. Beautiful. Now, the heel turn is officially on. And, I can't sit here anymore and say, oh, they can be tweeted. No, we're going full on heel here. We're going to come back to this. But this was stupendous. And if we get more of the BCC just running around fucking people up, I'm all for it. This rules. This is how you establish a faction that people should be afraid of. And again, people who don't want to see the bigger picture and stuff, they see what happened to Dalton and they're like, man, did it have to be Dalton and the boys? Dalton and the boys, as much as I love Dalton Castle, and as much as I think he is a refreshing presence on AEW/Ring of Honor programming, because of, the extravagance that he brings, the uniqueness of his gimmick, he is not in the same lane as the Blackpool Combat Club. He and the boys, they're not on the same lane. So this makes absolute sense in how things are structured and how things are put together. Doesn't mean never push Dalton Castle, but I'm not going to sit here and tear my shirt off that we're fucking up some kind of great some great push here, because this works out fine. This works out perfectly, in fact. We get a pretty complete video package of of everything that led up to Jeff Cobb being on Dynamite tonight, going back to New Year's Dash in New Japan in January up until this point. So someone has been hanging around the internet and is listening to the incessant, ridiculous complaints and is caving in. I don't know what to tell you. Think of the casuals. Hangman Adam Page gets interviewed backstage by Al Scoops. He says, we get an update on the Bucks. He says they're hurt, but they'll heal up. They'll be fine. Then Marvez asks him the pressing question, right? Former Miami Herald journalist Alex Marvez dives right in. Who do you think attacked the Bucks last week? And Hangman Page gives him, well, duh, the BCC. Did he call them the BBC? I think he did, right? Did I hear that right? That he called them the BBC? And if so, that's really funny. And if so, I'm pretty sure he did it intentionally. But yes, like to him. And here's the thing. This is where we're continuing this little tale here. Is we still have the door open. There's still enough doubt here for us to wonder, was it indeed the Blackpool Combat Club? Because everyone is so convinced. I mean, it might be. At some point, we're going to have to hear from the Bucks. Like, again, in this situation where the Bucks are, they're not dead, they're not unconscious in a coma, they're probably in a position to confirm it, right? To say, yeah, we were jumped by Wheeler and John, unless they were attacked from behind by people in ski masks or whatnot. And if AEW brings that wrinkle in where the Jacksons are cutting, they come back, they cut a promo or whatever, they get asked, who attacked you? And they say, we didn't see, we were blindsided. Then clearly it is not the BCC. Then we're setting up a surprise. We're setting up something else. Don Callis then pops in. He arrives to apologize, as he told Kenny Omega he'd do. Extends his hand. Adam Page seems a little suspicious, but you feel like he's about to give him the benefit of the doubt here, of the benefit of his sincerity. But out of nowhere, Blackpool Combat Club show up and beat the tar out of Hangman and Don Callis too. Mox slaps the glasses off of his face and then just wails on him, just drives one on his jaw. What a fucking... I couldn't stop laughing. What a great just segment. What a great slap. He just flings the glasses off of his face. Never hit a man with glasses, right? And the camera pans back down to Don Callis, who's suffering, and he's bleeding. Now, I thought, holy shit, he did a blade job, but it turns out, from reports I've read, apparently this was hard way. He was not planned to bleed. He got knocked out and he fell over onto some equipment. Like he took a bad spill and he busted his head open. Like this apparently was hard way. And I think the blood was such a nice touch to this to really define the fact, like, there's no way Don Callis is going to be out there with Kenny Omega. I thought this was such a nice touch, but it turns out it was hard way. I thought it augmented the segment. I really like this. Let's keep going. We're setting up for the IWGP United States Heavyweight title match. After the commercial, Tony Schiavone runs up to Kenny Omega, who's in the zone just before getting into the match. A bit of an out of place thing for Tony to do. He's never really done this before, but breaking news needs a breaking situation. He's a journalist, like Al Scoops. He doesn't want to be outdone by Al Scoops, getting all the juicy tidbits. So Tony's at the table and he sees Callis get fucked up, and he's like, wait a second, I got to find out what the champ is doing. what's his headspace out of this? We got to get a quick word in. I'm going to work the scoops now. So he runs from he doesn't run from the desk. This is my headcanon here, but he dashes from the desk, microphone in hand, to catch up with Kenny before his entrance, and he just barely makes it. To get the breaking story. Kenny, did you see that Don got attacked backstage? Kenny's like, no, I was wondering where he was. Well, he's not here because he got schmutzed by the BCC or the BBC, like your partner. Like your former friend, Hangman Adam Page, would say. And Kenny's like, ugh. And he seems frazzled and he's like, look, I can't think about this. I got a match coming up. He's like, wow. So he's going into this match in a bad headspace. Thanks to Tony Schiavone, the journalist, hard-hitting, on the beat. But frankly, it felt a little out of place, but as Kenny was coming out and, Don Callis wasn't there, I was like, okay, well, for sure Kenny would be wondering, right, where Don Callis is. And instead of having Kenny pantomime when he's coming out going, looking around and shrugging, doing one of these, well, they're like, no, look, we'll just have him, we'll have the bad news be transmitted to him via the biggest bearer of bad news of all time, Tony Schiavone. Anyway, this match was good, was solid. Wouldn't call it great or anything. Wouldn't call it excellent. It was a solid match. Got a stalemate to start until Omega lands a head scissors, lands the Rise of the Terminator as well, and a Kataro Crusher. Cobb fights back with a flash running brain buster. He just at some point he's just he's up on his feet. Next thing you know, he's got Kenny Omega up in the air and he's jogging around the ring and drops him on his fucking head. That was great stuff. They then go to the floor. Cobb posts him. They get tossed into the barricade. We get a bear hug of all fucking things. A bear hug. I mean, it's during the heat spot. Don't get me wrong, but a bear hug. I mean, look, I also understand why you do a bear hug. The story of this match is Kenny's ribs. He came up, taped, and I'd probably do a bear hug too, right? Because that's what Jeff Cobb was working. It lands a spin cycle and a stinger splash. He no-sells a Polish hammer, by Kenny Omega, who fights back with a backslide and a knee strike, but he runs right into a drop kick by Jeff Cobb, Snapdragon by Kenny Omega, and another one, knee to the jaw, another dragon suplex, big lariat by Cobb. We get some fighting spirit between the two, punch to the ribs by Jeff Cobb, gives him the upper hand in that exchange. Beautiful. Scary standing suplex, stalling superplex by Jeff Cobb. And the way Omega was yanked into the air on this one, it felt like neither of the dudes completely had their balance yet, the way it was set. And I gasped. I was like, they're going to, but no, it was, just Jeff Cobb being incredibly strong and Kenny Omega just being one of the best to ever do it. It was fine. Standing moonsault by Cobb as well. He tries to win the match with the one-winged angel. Of course, that doesn't work. KO reverses out. But he tries to do it to Cobb. He can't lift him. Cobb goes for it toward the islands, but no. Okada slips out. Omega slips out, lands a V-trigger. And then Omega lifts him up onto his shoulders, walks to the middle of the ring with Jeff Cobb on his shoulders. Not an easy thing to do. I was impressed. One-winged angel for the win. After the match, the Blackpool Combat Club hit the ring. From the audience, they surround the ring to try to take out Kenny. And there's no one to save him. The Bucks, they're at home. Paige just got knocked the fuck out. Don Callis, not that Don Callis would have been that big a help, but he just got knocked the fuck out. They get in there, they start to beat him up. And they send security, they send the elite geeks, right? Cutler, I think Nakazawa was there, but the BCC get rid of them. Why wouldn't they get rid of these geeks? Why didn't Brandon Cutler is a geek. He was there, he tried, but of course they're going to push him off. The BCC should absolutely be able to push off 5, 6 geeks, security geeks. I'm saying geeks a lot. But maybe, just maybe, Kenny Omega will be saved by the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, whose music hits and he walks out. Big surprise return. I don't think anyone was expecting Danielson to be back so soon. You know, when someone cuts a promo like he did, where it's like, I need to take some time off, right? The promo that he cut after losing to MJF, and he's like, look, I got to go recenter. I got to go home for a while. Remember, I have to go home. I'm going home is what he said. Something to that effect. But it was about him going home. I don't remember the exact verbiage. But that's what he said. So if he does that, and especially since we know that sometimes, guys will be cycled out of AEW booking for a while, right? So I'm like, well, maybe they're gonna give some breathing room to Danielson. They won't need him for a while. That's fine. So I wasn't expecting him back anytime soon. I was like, they'll probably keep him out of this entire pay-per-view cycle, right? But no, he shows up. Already then and there, I'm excited. He gets in the ring and he tells his buddies to get the hell out. What the hell are they doing? What are you doing? This is not the BCC way, is what he's basically saying here. He helps Kenny Omega up to his feet. And Kenny thinks that that Danielson is about to help him out, push off the rest of the guys, but Omega turns around and he eats a Busaiku knee right in the mush. Then the BCC just go back and beat him up some more. What a fucking brilliant angle. And in the meantime, you've got Bryan Danielson doing a one-arm label lock, flexing over Kenny Omega, telling him you're talking shit to him. You're everything that's wrong with pro wrestling. This ruled. Everything about this ruled. This is how a top tier pro wrestling angle should feel like. This is what it looks like. Surprises, events, top guys getting into top guy shit. Love this. Every moment of it was fantastic. You cannot take this away from me. For real though, this from the moment that the BCC showed up to squash Dalton and the boys to this. What a great bit of weaving storytelling all throughout. I can't put this over enough. All of this was great. And now look at the prospect that we have is the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club getting it on in some form or another. Are we going to get Omega versus Danielson? Probably. Are we going to get a Blood and Guts? Maybe. Are we going to get a Anarchy in the Arena? Please. Let's fucking go. There are so many awesome possibilities to come out of this. Plus, with the continued story of the Elite getting back together, finding their footing, right? The payoff to all of this, outside of the excellent matches in the story, is going to be a full return to form for the Elite, right? It has to be. And if not, all 4 guys back together, at least Hangman not being on the outs anymore. Maybe Hangman being, you know what, I'm going to continue doing my thing, but I got your back and you guys got mine, right? It has to be that. God, this ruled. And no promos necessary. I understood all of what was going on. Because I'm not a sheet of drywall. I understood this. Didn't need weeks of promos. I got it. And let's continue down this path. And listen to this. Look, if there's one thing that I have been harping on for the better part of, we're heading into 2 years at this point. When was the BCC formed? Last year? Since that part? Since last year, right? With William Regal and all that. Yeah, it was last year. We're going to be heading into 18 months at this point. But everything. Trying to say too many things at once again. The Blackpool Combat Club has been the most successfully consistent, great stuff on AEW programming since Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson started feuding with each other, only to become friends thanks to William Regal. Ever since that point, moving forward, this group has been involved, has been the catalyst, has been at the forefront of nothing but the greatest shit in this company. Consistently good to great to excellent. And even through trying times, as we've heard about earlier this week, with certain members not working under contract. There's a lot of talk about MVPs of AEW over the past year since its inception. You know, we're talking a lot about that. It's a part of the discourse. There's arguments to be made about Jon Moxley, but this entire BCC thing, as far as creative, as far as storylines, as far as an angle, and then the payoffs, the matches. I frankly don't think there has been anything more consistently great than the BCC and everything they've been involved in. Extraordinary. Always deliver. Every time they're involved, it's gold. We get a hype package for the Guns versus FTR next week. The big loser leaves town match. Well, at least, FTR will leave town if they lose. I don't know why people were thinking that this was going to be cycled into the May pay-per-view. How would you stretch this out for 7 weeks? Why would you stretch this out for 2 months? 7 weeks, 8 weeks? Because the Guns can't carry this. Honestly, they can't. Get this out of the way. And next week we're going to find out. Because as I mentioned, Dax Harwood had been talking about April 10 as the day that that their deal come up, right? So April 5 next week, that falls into the things that Harwood has been putting out there. And he said, we have to make a big decision regarding our careers. We're going to let our fans know. So we're going to find out next week just how much of a work this is. I still think there are massive amounts of work. Now, maybe there is something that's hanging in the decision for FTR coming back or not, and that might have to do with CM Punk. Maybe, all signs point to old Phil Brooks not being necessarily welcome back, and it might not be a good idea. And Tony still has to decide, what is he going to do with CM Punk and the company. And maybe if CM Punk is, sort of angling to not return, maybe FTR are not, show us solidarity. We won't come back either. But at the same time, FTR are super over in the company. They're beloved by fans. Strap the titles on him. Let's give him another run. I don't see, outside of some form of loyalty to CM Punk, I don't see why they'd walk out. There might be other stuff that we're not privy to, which is absolutely fair, but there might be reasons for them not wanting to re-sign with AEW. Maybe they do want to go back to the Fed. don't see why, but maybe they do. Or maybe this is all just a massive fucking work, which I still believe. Look, belief versus gut instincts are very different. My gut instinct, my spidey sense says all this is a work. Let's talk about this in a few days. Then we get the AEW International Championship defended by the Workhorse. Once again, Orange Cassidy defeating the Butcher. This was all but all right. Like, this was a wrestling match. I don't have much to talk about here. I don't think it was great. I don't know. I was expecting Butcher to be more butchery, if that makes sense. Ref is distracted. Blade runs in with a crowbar to get to attack Orange Cassidy. The best friends come out. Chucky T seems to be okay. He arrives. They make the save. Orange Punch. Beach Break gets the win on the Butcher for Orange Cassidy, who continues to be the workhorse of the company. There's not much more to say here. We get a pre-tape with Jade Cargill, Mark Sterling, Layla Gray, and what do they call her? The legal enforcer, the legal representative, the legal whatever. They're still going to enforce the fact this. Look, this segment had something to do with Taya Valkyrie and using the Jaded and the ongoing legal proceedings here, but I barely could focus because of what Jade was wearing. That was phenomenal. What Jade Cargill was draped in was an outstanding outfit that just had me completely flummoxed. Flummoxed is the word. Agape. It had all my attention. They said things. I got the gist of it. They're on the feud with Taya is ongoing. That's fine. It's all, Mark Sterling is a good promo. I like that he's involved here. I like this angle. It's something interesting for Jade. It's good. But as far as the particulars go, don't ask me. I was flummoxed. You say what you want about Jade. Jade is never going to be your workhorse. Is never going to be your work rate phenom. She's not. It's not going to happen. And no matter with whom she's coaching and who's giving her tips, they'll go as far as they can with her. And we've seen flashes of good stuff from Jade, but that's not the point of Jade, right? That's not the point. The point is stuff like last night where she just talks and captivates all the attention, conquers a room. That's what Jade Cargill is about. We get another promo with Juice Robinson. He says he's going to fight Action Andretti this Friday to stick it to Ricky Starks. And then he's going to fight Ricky Starks next week on Dynamite. This has already gone too far. This has already gone on too long. And I'm pretty sure Ricky Starks is backstage going, what are we doing here? Because even myself, I need direction here. I need to see how things were going. Because goofy ass Juice Robinson doing the, whatever the fuck he was doing during his promo, he's fine. Don't get me wrong, but Ricky Starks is above this. He's been positioned above this. So I'm still of the impression that we're doing something with Bullet Club, because Bullet Club is always brought up in this to some degree. So I think this is a bump. It's part of a bigger story. At least I hope. I don't want to be proven wrong, but I feel like there's been enough hints, a little winky-doos as we've been going along here to realize that Juice is the entry-level feud to something more interesting that might be related to the Bullet Club. Because right now, I don't think this is an interesting use of Ricky Starks at all. Especially coming out of this feud. And again, look, for those of you who watched the Jericho Vortex episode, this is not on Chris Jericho. Because Ricky Starks came out the undeniable winner of that feud, and it did help elevate him, put him on TV every week. So, this is a weird follow-up. And who does the follow-ups? Well, it ain't Chris Jericho. Pardon me. Ruby Soho defeated Willow Nightingale in a fun little match. I enjoyed this. I thought this was well put together. Ruby stalls to begin. I like a good stall in pro wrestling. I really do. Eventually she gets back in and she slaps Willow. She goes for a head scissors, but Willow just outright blocks it because she's too strong. Right into a side slam. Does the diving body press. Some body slams. Ruby Soho chokes her on the ropes, distracts the ref, and Saraya delivers some knees because, of course, Ruby Soho is out there with the rest of the Outcasts. Suplex by Soho. Soho gets a heat segment where Toni Storm gets some licks in. They trade some strikes. Nightingale fights back, lands a big kick, a last ride, and a DVD as well. But Toni Storm distracts the ref as Willow Nightingale is going up top, which allows Ruby Soho to hit 2 no futures, one from the top rope and another regular no future. But Willow still kicks out. Backslide by Ruby Soho, a pounce by Willow. The straps are down. But Toni Storm saves Ruby from eating a doctor bomb. Soho rolls her up, puts her feet on the ropes, gets the win. Probably my second favorite match of the night. I thought this was a lot of fun. When you put the workers in, and I can't say this enough. Put the workers in, and this is what you'll get in the women's division. You'll get these solid matches by all the ladies. You get these solid fights. This was great. Well, pump the brakes, Warren. This was a lot of fun. After the match, the Outcasts go after Willow. They try to Pillmanize her. I'm like, oh my God. But Riho and Sky Blue come out for the save. They get punked. So Jamie Hayter runs in with violence. Oh my God. That Haterade, that Toni Storm dodge, that was coming in like a fucking freight train. And Jamie Hayter is over as fuck. Don't anyone tell you. And look, if anything, Jamie Hayter is the absolute goddamn proof that AEW fans will get behind the workers, those who are great pro wrestlers. It will get them over in AEW. Jamie Hayter was proof of that. Didn't get any mic time. She was Britt's second in command, and yet every time she got into the ring, people gravitated to her because she's such a good pro wrestler. Got herself over, and she's still over. This is the same thing with Willow. It's the same thing with anyone that they just want to let wrestle. Toni Storm is another good example. Serena Deeb is another good example. Shida is another good example. All of them. Let them work. And they'll get over. Your division will get over. But then you need to invest a little more in your division outside of just like 1 quarter hour a week. It's a whole other story. Anyway, so she does the save, and then she and Riho do a face-to-face standoff because they're fighting next week. And you see next week, now Jamie Hayter is an attraction. She's on Dynamite next week. Everyone's excited for it. It's like, fuck yeah. Jamie Hayter plus fighting Riho. This is going to rule. don't think that it's lost on me that Riho got taken out by the Outcasts the week that she doesn't come out with her pipe. It ain't lost on me. Stick with the pipe, Riho. They feared the pipe. They fear Riho with a pipe. Riho, with the numbers game, they can handle it. But numbers game versus Rio's with a pipe, Rio with a pipe is too much. Rio with a pipe is S tier. It's something to fear. Quaking in their boots. Rio alone, 3-on-1, we can take her. 3-on-1 with a pipe? No. Rio with a pipe. We get a vignette from Powerhouse Hobbs. No QTV this week. And I take that as a net positive. Going back to the drawing board or just canceled altogether, I don't know. But whatever shape QTV was in over the past 2 weeks, someone went, you know what? This stinks. Because it did. Have QT focus on his strengths instead of trying too hard. As I talked about last week, you can go listen to that last week's review for my thoughts on it. Because QT's great. Those segments stunk. QT's great. But those segments stunk. But QT's great. And then the main event, the big return after 9 months on the shelf. Adam Cole defeated Daniel Garcia. A fine match. It was all right. I think a lot of people are extremely down on it because they wanted some classic. They wanted a spectacular match. To a degree, if I'm being completely fair, I'm a little underwhelmed with the result from how the match played out. But I understand the story that they were telling at the same time here. Maybe was Garcia the right opponent? Look, there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about at this point, but the match is done here. There's a stalemate here until Garcia reverses out of a head scissors and then lands a pile driver. And the pile driver is what drives the story, which is the head of Adam Cole. Because Cole rolls out of the ring once he gets the pile driver and he fucking sells it. He sells it like he just got stabbed. But this is the story for the match, and that's what Garcia does. He goes to the floor, tries to land another pile driver, but Adam Cole back body drops him. Back in the ring, Garcia is pummeling him. Cole gets a hope spot. Fireman's carry neck breaker. They kick each other in a German suplex by Daniel Garcia. And then, we're all cringing. We're going, Garcia tunes up the band. Goes for a super kick, but eats one from Adam Cole instead. He avoids Adam Cole dropping the boom. Garcia then does some hammer and anvil elbows. Garcia rolls through the Panama Sunrise into a dragon tamer, and then lands a straitjacket pile driver. So where I'm feeling it, like ooh, like the story is solid, the drama was there, match was fine. We get a Panama Sunrise by Adam Cole, drops the boom, he wins. And then after the match, Britt Baker comes out to celebrate as everyone is just happy. We get streamers being thrown around. Look, if you do not believe that Tony Khan has big plans for Adam Cole, you're completely off base. He is absolutely one of the top guys in the company. He's been one of the top guys in the company since he entered. You can follow and listen to any, bad faith discourse out there. People who don't watch the product and saying, "Oh, AEW is remember back here a year ago before he got hurt, Adam Cole's being misused. He should be world champion by now." So it was something that he was never in WWE. Well, he was NXT champion, but he was never, he wouldn't look at what they're doing with Johnny Gargano. You tell me that Adam Cole would have been safe on main roster. Let's get real here for a second. He's always been a top guy. He's been wrestling top guys. What was his feud before he got into Adam Page? He was in angles with the Elite. What are we doing? He has been positioned as a top guy from the minute he came in. And if you had any inkling, any doubt that Tony Khan was going to continue down that path, down the road of pushing Adam Cole to the fucking moon, if you had any doubt, that streamer celebration at the end should have quelled it. That's a welcome home if I ever saw one. That is the booker telling the audience, oh, by the way, this guy is a top guy in my book. As I said, Britt Baker comes out to celebrate, and it's a nice feel-good moment. They're hyping up the All Access show after. It's all fine. I'm okay with it. Maybe the match under-delivered a little bit. At least to me, the story was fine. Everything was fine. But the kicker here is that Chris Jericho comes out to collect Dan Garcia, and Chris Jericho starts giving Adam Cole the evil eye, some dirty looks, an icy glare over the shoulder as he's walking back with Garcia, holding up Dan Garcia. On cue, Twitter goes nuts. On cue, I can't believe they're saddling him with Chris Jericho. Oh no, the Jericho Vortex, etc., etc. Whereas, the Galaxy Brains, people like me, who only see positives out of this, will say, Adam Cole is about to feud with one of the top guys in the company. And I don't care what your personal feelings in regards to Chris Jericho are. I don't care what you think about in this, just specifically here, for the purpose of this analysis. I don't care what your thoughts on his politics are, whether he's a good guy or not, whether he's been burying CM Punk to the media all of this doesn't matter. What matters is Chris Jericho is a bona fide superstar and is one of the top guys of the company, one of the top 3 guys in the company who has been putting people over and over and over again since he's been in the company, despite what people would want you to believe. And Adam Cole returning his first big feud, coming back, is going to be with one of the top guys in the company who is on television every week, which means Adam Cole is going to be on television every week. And the likely outcome of this feud is Chris Jericho putting Adam Cole over because Adam Cole is a top guy and Tony Khan wants us to see him as a top guy. So what better way to have him look like a top guy than to have him feud and beat one of the top guys in the company? There is no negatives to this. There are no negatives to this, I should say. Proper grammar's important, even when I'm mad. And if you don't believe me, I believe the only big feud, the only truly big feud that Chris Jericho won is against Cody Rhodes back in 2019. He's been putting over everyone since. It's enough. That's the review. So again, look, a Dynamite where the wrestling is very secondary to shit happening, to Chris Jericho coming out to line up Adam Cole as his next feud, to Even the little bumps to the women's story was good. And the BCC stuff from top to bottom, including the elite, including all the layers that they're creating there. Another little bump to MJF and the pillars. All great stuff. It's all been great stuff. If was this the greatest wrestling show of all time? No, it was not. From a in-ring perspective, entirely forgettable. But this was eventful. Shit was happening on this show. It all felt relevant, all felt important, some good surprises. I got nothing bad to say about the show overall. You can nitpick, and I did. But this is a show you need to watch because it's a turning point for this pay-per-view cycle. Go watch it if you haven't already. And go watch my Jericho Vortex video that I did with Joe Lanza of the flagship podcast. And then you'll understand why I'm so fed up of people getting mad when Jericho is feuding with people. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, 5-star rating on Spotify. All this stuff helps out a great deal. I will be back next Tuesday for all the fallout from WrestleMania weekend. There's certainly going to be a lot of stuff that's happening. Be sure to join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. We're very excited for WrestleMania weekend. And if you're listening to this on Thursday, Bloodsport is on tonight. So that's one that's captivating our attention. So come on, join us. Link is in the description. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a great WrestleMania weekend. Enjoy all the wrestling. That's not the right one. Enjoy all the wrestling. And I'll see you next time.